RWBY Manga Chapter 8. Now this is the second part to Yang's trailer. Apparently we're going to be getting a third. I actually thought it would only be split up into two, but it is the longest one, although I thought this was only going to be two parts because they kind of skipped over most of her fighting kind of the goons, it seemed, in the last chapter. But I thought it was pretty cool. It was a real action-focused one. It definitely had dialogue throughout, but it was kind of like it was dialogue in almost on basically every single page, but it was pretty much like one line or like two lines, so it was like really minute, and it was pretty much an action chapter, and it looked pretty cool. There were a ton of movements. Honestly, I was kind of just flying through it because the dialogue was basically they'd say some names. Here's a little bit here, here's a little bit there, and it was just like crazy art pages is pretty much what this whole chapter was, and I didn't hate that. I thought it looked really good. It was somewhat confusing a little bit just looking at it because it's a lot, especially with Yang. It's not only do we have her with all of her hair, and then we have two other characters that she's fighting against and their crazy movements. Plus, we have her gauntlets going off, so we have big explosions, fast movements with her fists, and like blurry images, and her here, and the twins there, or one twin, stuff like that. So there were moments where I'm like, I can't exactly tell what's happening. I don't know if she's punching or flipping. The very ending of this one, I was super confused. I couldn't tell what the heck the position was, and I think it was that one of the twins was trying to kick her, and she was like blocking her foot, but the twin almost went like up under her and lifted her entire leg up like she was about to slam down on Yang's head. After Yang tried to block her foot like with her elbow, she kind of extended her foot out underneath her elbow and then was just going to do like a full, drop kick. So there was just a lot of stuff, and I was like, it was somewhat confusing, but for the most part I was like, it's fine. Like, it didn't really bother me because it was just like, I know she's punching somebody and stuff like that, so it wasn't like that big of a deal. And of course, with it being short, that was the real disappointment. But it was still an entertaining chapter, especially as far as an action chapter. And even though there were a couple of panels where I was like, I can't exactly, I'm trying to follow it, but it seems like she went from, like a straight punch to a backhand, in the next page or something. So it seems like it would be a lot of distance between the forward punch to her blocking, in the next scene. So that was kind of the only issue I had with it, but I still enjoyed it. I thought it looked good. There was just, it was just a bit chaotic, but it was still fine. Like, I still enjoyed it, and I'm kind of used to, I guess I'm kind of used to the chaos now, where it's like sometimes you can't really tell the angle, like, it's kind of just 2D in front of us, but it's like, this is probably them falling through the sky or something crazy, so it's one of those sorts of things. Obviously not really falling through the sky in this chapter, but we've had that before with Weiss's thing. But it was still fine, and I still enjoyed it. It was very simple. Like I said, I really thought this was going to be the end, so I was surprised that it wasn't really much to it as far as the dialogue went. It was really, all we got as far as story, technically, I feel, was the names of the twins. It was like, oh, these are Hey Junior Xiang's, best girls, and it's I never really knew how to pronounce their names, but I would say like Melachite or something like that. It's the twins. I just call them the twins. So, we see them fight, and yeah, that's pretty much the whole thing. And so we're going to have the third part, which I guess is going to be the ending of the fight, and I don't know, maybe RWBY's going to show up at the end of it, and we got to see a little bit of RWBY. It's like a little flashback scene after Yang gets her hair pulled out, and I like that, and it was cool. It's like, she's like, Yang is like, I love your hair, RWBY, and then RWBY says, I like your hair. It's like a burning dragon and stuff, and then we get to see Yang kind of do her little pose when she does the explosion and she's going at him. So it looked really cool, and it was a nice, simple little trailer, or a simple little chapter as an adaptation for the trailer. But I'm excited to see what they do with part 3, because really after she fights them in the trailer, once she beats them up, it's almost like nothing. Like, she pretty much gets the information she needs from Junior, and that's pretty much it. And then she walks outside, where she doesn't even get the information. She kind of beats them, and it's like, well, beat everybody up. I'm out of here. So I don't know what we should really expect for part 3, but I'm kind of curious because I would assume it's not going to be, the whole thing. But they might change some stuff. They might add a bit of dialogue. They did it in this as well, where they actually had Junior say, like, oh, that was fun, let's do that again, after he took her hair out. Because in the trailer, he just ripped her hair out and he realized that he's just kind of like, huh, and he laughed because he got some of her hair after she punched him. So, pretty much every chapter, they've added in a little bit of dialogue that I enjoyed. And I'm excited to see what they do add, because I'm actually curious if they'd add anything for the interaction between Yang and Ruby. I'd kind of like to see that, because it's like, oh, what? Because I feel like it would be a funny conversation. Like, oh, yeah, I was looking for somebody and had to just, like, destroy this entire club. I feel like that could actually be a funny little interaction. And personally, I'd like to see if they add anything to it. But I'm curious what they're going to add in general, because it could still end right at the end of the chapter or right at the end of the trailer, but they could also do it where maybe the first 3 to 5 pages is the end of Yang actually dealing with the twins and Junior, and then she meets up with Ruby, and then we get another time jump to somewhere in between, volumes 1 and 2. So I'm not sure exactly what to expect, especially with everything kind of coming up, and we've had, announcements and whatnot for the most recent volume of RWBY, so we know it's coming back in October. I'm curious what they're going to do, and I'm sure they've known for a while, actually, when Volume 4 was actually coming, considering they're doing the canonical story in manga form. So I am curious what they're going to be doing leading up to the most recent volume, and of course we have RWBY Chibi, which, it's kind of doing its own thing, so we have our 3 separate properties of it, but I am curious what stories if they're gonna change up what they did initially, thought they were gonna tell, or if they, already have this plan set in motion, where we'll actually get to see maybe some better, not better stories, but more backstories for some of the villain characters, because we really don't have a lot on them. There's a ton of characters we don't have a lot on, but really the adults is kind of the big thing I think that's going to play a large part in the in the upcoming volume. And I would love to see that explored, even though I feel like they might not do that because it will kind of alienate a ton of people who might not even really know that the manga exists. And that's why I always say, like, share the manga, because I don't know how many people really read it. But, maybe they won't do too much, deep backstory stuff through the manga. Although that would be awesome if they did do that before the next volume came out. But I doubt they'll be doing that. They'll stick to, this is what's happening in the show. This is, the chibi version is just, the chibi version. You can do whatever. And then we have the manga version, which for now is still recreating the trailers, and we're almost at the end. And that says a lot. I mean, they kind of skipped over all of RWBY's first trailer, which didn't have any story anyway. It was really just her fighting the Beowulfs. But now that we're getting to the end, which I would assume is going to be the next chapter is going to be the end of Yang's trailer, I am curious where they're going to go. But I did enjoy this one, like I said. I'm excited to see for sure what they do. Even if this one, the next chapter ends at the very end of the next trailer, which they could easily, pad it out to do all the action if they wanted to. But I kind of hope that it ends in the first 5 pages, and then the rest is, even, I mean, they're all only 15 pages anyway, so even if it is just like a little 10-page story, or, 9 pages or something like that, where it's just some little mini thing, I'd be fine with that, although I admittedly kind of expect them to just go through the rest of the trailer, and then we'll get like maybe a couple lines of dialogue, something like that, and then it'll end, and it's like, now we have to wait and see what they do afterwards. But still looking forward to it. Of course, would love to know what you guys thought about this chapter, so please comment below. Let me know your favorite parts, your least favorite parts, and I could easily be wrong. They might do a little mini thing set after all the trailers, and it might just go up to the very end of Yang's trailer in the next chapter. But either way, I would love to know what stories you guys would like to see dived into. I mean, there's a million different things, a million different characters. And considering all of this stuff is canon, I kind of don't really care who it is. I just want more content. I'd love to know, actually, if I had to choose, I would love to know more about Sun and his team. Not specifically Sun, but more about his team and really where they live. Because, and I'm sure we'll get into that in Volume 4 anyway, because of how everything kind of played out. But I would love to know where his people come from, because basically where Sun comes from, it's almost like, we have our school set up here, and then Sun comes from this area where it's like, technically we have this thing, but it seems really open. Like, they're kind of like the free sort of area a little bit. And if I remember right, when they went through in Volume 2, talking about the tournaments and stuff, they would show all the different locations, like, okay, costumes, or not costumes, but uniform, uniform, uniform. And then where Sun was from, everyone was kind of just dressing like t-shirts and jeans and all that stuff. It was like different colors. And I was like, I kind of want to know about where they come from, because it seems kind of free-spirited and very open compared to, even in the school, where they are. So I'd love to know where they come from. I'd like to see more of that. I highly doubt that that'll happen anytime soon, but because of those little glimpses and just how they kind of play around with the idea that it's just a bit more, it's a lot more open where they come from. I kind of just like to see what it's like for them. So we'll probably get that in Volume 4 anyway, but I'm still really curious. So if I had to choose, that's what I'd like to see, just because not only will we get to learn more about Sun and his team, which I've wanted to for a long time, but we'd also get to learn even more about another part of the world. So that's my choice, but I would love to know what little stories you guys would like to see. Maybe it's first meetings of teams, stuff like that. That could be really cool as well. Some of the other teams, and Team Coffee I think is a great example, because they were a team already within the series. So we didn't see what they went through to become a team and stuff like that. So I'd like to see that too. It's like, this is how this team formed. This would probably be saved for Volume 4, but like, how did Crow and his team form? How did that team get formed? That I would easily assume is going to get saved for Volume 4 or 5 or something like that. That probably won't be put into the manga. And maybe none of the team formation stuff will get put into the manga, but maybe it would, because, based on how the show is gone, they don't spend a ton of time on the lesser details, to be totally honest. They go through, like, this is what's happening, here's maybe a line of dialogue or something about, a thing from the past, but maybe we could get that in manga form, see how some of these other teams form together, things like that, and I think that'd be really cool. But would love to know what you guys would like to see, and of course, what you guys thought about this chapter in general, so please comment below, let me know, and thanks for watching.